Okay. So I'm Bill and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Bill.
And this is Janine. She's an alcoholic. Okay. Yeah, thanks. We're gonna start on We Agnostics on page 45, lack of power, and then we'll carry on from there. Okay. Okay. Creator, thank you for this beautiful day, and I ask for your grounding right now. I had a good day, Creator, and I'm a little vibrating. I ask for your grounding. I ask for your guidance. I ask for your clarity of mind as we read this literature, my favorite chapter to deliver in the program. Just ask for the experiences and the words and the knowledge that you can provide through your power, that it comes out today in the session. I ask for a new experience within my own recovery today, new experience with you, God, with my fellows, with this book and with the program. Creator, I ask for your help in all areas. I just want to humble myself before you and just perform the best I can every day. Thank you, God. Thank you for all these people that come and show and support and are here to change their lives, Creator. That's, people ask me, Creator, what inspires me, and what inspires me are the people who want to change, and whether they're 1 day sober or 50 years sober, I just love this shit. Thank you, God.
God, thank you for bringing us all here together safe tonight. Thank you for the week that we've all had. Thank you for giving us the willingness to get sober and to get present and to really start to look at ourselves in a way where we want to be better every day. Thank you for everybody who I cross paths with. Everybody I cross paths with gives me something, teaches me something, and it's important to me in my life. Thank you for my kids. Thank you for the week that's about to lay itself out. Thank you for keeping me pretty calm in a lot of uncertainty. And I suppose that's just because of us too. You've taken me through a lot of things, whether it's been question marks, and now I just can relax in the uncertainty and let things unfold without any extra anxiety or fear. Be with us tonight as we study the book, as we spend time together learning. Amen. Bill and I don't represent any 12-step fellowship. We're here to share how the literature and the directions contained in the big book have transformed our lives. We are here to share our experience with our own journey through the steps, what the steps mean to us, and how we have seen the steps change the many people that we have worked with. The main focus of the study is to show people how the design for living can work in anyone's life when the literature is understood and, more importantly, applied in a practical way. What this looks like in the everyday interactions and how the small moments and choices we do add up to an amazing new quality of recovery, relationships, and life satisfaction.
So when we started this chapter last week, we talked about a couple things, and for those people that weren't here for most of the step one part of this, that's a really important part of this program, right? If you don't understand the allergy, which is, super important to know about, the spiritual malady and the obsession. It's not really obsession, but all those three components are really important to understand before we even move into this step two shit. Understanding I'm powerless over the spiritual malady is probably the most important part, right? And then knowing that you're powerless over that first drink, you don't have the power of choice in the first fucking drink. That's super important, because your average person that doesn't know what we're talking about, they think they make the choice to pick this fucking drink up. The problem is that they never make the choice once they've crossed the line as an alcoholic. The drink picks them up, and then they think that they pick it up. And every time they think they pick it up and they've hurt themselves and they hurt other people's lives, whether it's a drink or a drug, doesn't matter. As they hurt other people and themselves, thinking they made this choice, they create more shame on the inside and the subconscious where the spiritual malady is already activated. So then as they keep going, they need more drinks and more drugs because there's more hurt and there's more pain. The conscious mind can make up whatever excuses it wants, right? For why it picked up a drink. What are some of the reasons why we pick up drink? Well, people die, right? Oh, I had a bad day. Or I'm going to fucking go to a concert. Or I'm going to, you know, whatever the reason is. And some of these reasons have a plausible actual excuse behind it. But in the light of light in your heart of hearts, does it really make sense why you fucking picked up the drink or the drug? When you can look at thousands of experiences in your life and go, fuck, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, that's insanity. When we talk about step 2, the insanity of step 2, oh, you go to the meetings and you guys hear it too, and I fucking hear it. It's like, oh, I'm fucking insane. I'm just insane. That's not what the fuck it's talking about, okay? What it's talking about is came to believe that a power, this power out here somewhere, wherever it is, and it's actually in here, came to believe that this power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And what does that mean? It means allow me to see the truth and not pick this first drink up. Restore me to sanity so I don't fucking pick it up, because that's the insanity. As you work this program like solidly for a few years, the real insanity is running your own life. And we all know who understand this program at like deeper levels, we all know that when we run the show, it fucking turns into insanity. And we fucking get stuck in our heads, and then we're in the malady, and it ain't long before Banana Peel Trail takes us right back to a fucking drink again, right? So understanding all of these parts of step 1 are really fucking important. So I'm just going to highlight. And at any time you can stop me or...
Are you needing to be stopped right now?
No.
Okay. Just tell me when. I'm gonna say something before you go on.
I live in a spiritual malady. I'm restless, irritable, discontent, unless I can again experience a sense of ease and comfort that once by taking the first drink. So once I'm so restless, irritable, discontent, I can't handle like being in my own skin, or I can't handle other people. I'm fighting everyone and everything. People are agitating me. I'm having all these bad days in a row. I will succumb to the desire. It means I fail to resist. And I pick up a drink against my own will. But even though it might look like it's my will, because I actually pick it up. But in the light of heart of hearts, what always happens, it's against my will, right? So then I put it in my body. As soon as that drink hits my bloodstream, I'm no longer drinking to escape life anymore. The first drink that I took, I drank to escape. But now, as I keep drinking, I'm no longer drinking to escape life. I'm drinking to overcome a physical craving in my body beyond my mental control. And my body can drink without my mind even being involved, which is why we drink so much and so long, which is why we can't stay stopped. Or if while drinking, we have little control the amount we take. And I'm just going to take what I just said back to the first paragraph of We Agnostic quickly.
Can you pause for a sec, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to give some sponsorship notes. So this comes up with Girls I Sponsor and how to do step 1. So some of the stories that match what Bill's saying here, if you talk about how Bill needed the doctor to tell him what was wrong with him, right? Like that in the alcoholic type, once you start drinking, you can't stop. So the phenomenon of the craving and the peculiar mental twist. So Bill then took that to Dr. Bob, and then he told him about the allergy of the body, right? And that's what Dr. Bob needed, because Dr. Bob already had the spirituality and he had an understanding like I am an alcoholic or whatever. But once Bill gave him the information there that he couldn't stop drinking when he started and there's a mental blank spot, that's what got Dr. Bob sober for good. The book says that he took off with the enthusiasm he didn't have before, and he became sober and stayed sober. And then to get into the mind stuff, you would be talking about Jim and Fred, you know, the businessman who just wanted a nightcap and the guy who just put the shot of whiskey in the milk, and that talks about with your sponsees, you're talking about that with the peculiar mental twist. And then Roland Hazard, the story in there about how, you know, he goes to Carl Jung and he knew he was an alcoholic, and he spent a long time with Carl Jung, and they did a lot of counseling, and he was in great physical shape, great mental shape, and he was drunk before he got home. And what he needed was the spiritual solution. So all three pieces that Bill's talking about, those are the stuff you want to be talking about in step one with your sponsees, and just bringing those stories out of the book.
Okay, and fast forward to this first paragraph in We Agnostics. So this is the first paragraph of step 2 in the big book. And when you think about these steps in the book, they don't actually tell you where the steps are. You got to know the program to understand the steps, right? And then this is the beginning of step 2. But as you go through this literature, you're not given step 2 till a little further into this We Agnostic chapter. So if when you honestly want to, you can find you cannot quit entirely. Have you ever tried to quit and you haven't been able to stay quit? Or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take. So once you put it in your body, do you have little control over the amount that you take? If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So, you know, your average alcoholic that doesn't know they're alcoholic, they're not really going to believe that. Most of us in here aren't in here by mistake, right? We know that those 2 lines are pretty much fucking true. And so, like, part of the reason why I'm doing this study is because I've sponsored so many people, and I've been able to extrapolate so much data out of working with so many people. And I'm fucking convicted in what I say. Those 2 lines are exactly right. If you're the real deal alcoholic, very scant chance you're going to recover without a power in your life. Very scant chance. And then even if you do stop using substances, to me, that's settling for crumbs, right? Like, that's the crumbs. Like, that's the dry drunk. That's the dry drunk who fucking white knuckles it for the rest of their life because they don't fucking want to drink again, but they don't have a solution to their life. And then we talked about the step 2 ultimatum. We get 2 choices as alcoholics and addicts. Once you understand you're different from a normal person and you will never be the same as normal people in the drink area, once you fucking get that part, then you can fucking get this part. You have 2 choices as an alcoholic addict. You accept the kit of spiritual tools that were laying at your feet, or you fucking slowly die or quickly die an alcoholic death. And if you're able to get sober for a little while and you stop working this program, you fucking start going crazy again. And then you'll either blow your brains out or you'll pick up a drink again, or you live as a dry drunk. And those things aren't like, none of them are nice. So just to touch base on another quick thing before we keep going, bottom of the page, if a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. So what does that mean? It means if you just want to live and try to change your life and be the best version of yourself and read these books and do this and have a job and fucking go to the gym and have this better philosophy of life, you would have recovered long ago. The job ain't keeping you fucking sober. The boyfriend or the girlfriend ain't keeping you fucking sober. The church you go to ain't keeping you sober. The fucking yoga classes that you're going to ain't keeping you sober. That shit doesn't keep you sober. If it did, you wouldn't even be here, right? So we could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all of our own might. But the needed power, there's a needed power, and it doesn't come from us. It's not there. So our human resources as marshaled by the will. Last week I talked about marshaled again, like martial law. As we marshal our own will into our own lives, it says it's not sufficient. We fail utterly. We can't do this and without help, man. With the people that I work with in this program, if they don't fucking get God in their life and work with like a real God, not the theory of God, they're usually drunk within a fucking year. Within a year. Almost nobody makes it more than a year. And I'll guarantee, and I'll even put money on it, almost nobody makes it 2 years.
I just want to say something.
Okay.
This paragraph here, when I get to we agnostics, when I'm working with somebody, it's a really good checkpoint. Like it's a good checkpoint because the ego rebuilds itself so quickly. So if you have somebody who's like really willing to do step work and to go through the book and you're going through this step 1 and then you get to chapter 4 here and you're entering step 2, this paragraph is really summing up what we've just done in step 1 and to have a conversation there. So like after that first paragraph, when it says the conquer, I just have checkpoints in my book to have a conversation about like, do you think that you can quit drinking? Like, where are you at? And see if there's any changes, because sometimes people forget that they're alcoholic over time, and you can catch that and in what they're talking about. So in my book, I have the checkpoint, and it just sums up the step 1 before you get into step 2. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So here we are, lack of power. Probably one of the most important paragraphs in this book. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But how and where are we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what the book is about. Its main object will enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. So the first powerless we have that we need help with is I'm powerless over the first drink. Okay? That's the most important powerless. But I'm also more powerless once I put it in my body. So if I can stop and not put it in my body, I won't set off the allergy. So I need this power to match my insane thought to pick it up with the sane idea to leave it alone and not pick it up. That's why I need the power. The problem with the power in the drink is if you just have a theoretical God, that power isn't sufficient to not let you pick up the drink, because the ego is really powerful, right? The ego of a human being is super powerful, and it attaches to the idea that you're connected to God. Just because you think you are and you say you are doesn't mean you're fucking connected to God. That's why way back in the Roland Hazard story, when Roland Hazard was saying to Carl Jung, like, dude, what is this thing you're talking about? What is the spiritual awakening? And Carl Jung says, dude, it's ideas, emotions, and attitudes that are the guiding forces of your life that need to be exposed and cast aside. And a whole new set of conceptions and motives need to dominate you, Roland. Meaning you got to live differently. You got to change how you think. And Roland's like, fuck, I got God. This is simple. I already believe in God, Carl. I'm Christian. I believe in God. I got this. And Carl Jung said, dude, I'm sorry, but you're fucked. You don't get it. He destroyed Roland's chances of fucking believing this because it doesn't work like that. The ego cannot have an idea of God and keep you sober. It might work for 6 months, might work for 3 months. Anyone in here, and I'm not asking, but you people that have been to treatment, have been, have tried to connect to God, you probably didn't make it more than 6 fucking months. And you definitely didn't make it more than a year. And if you were unlucky enough to make it more than a year, you didn't make it 2 fucking years. Because the theory of God's not enough. What the program actually does, it allows me to follow a set of precepts like practical application, where God actually starts working in my life. That's what this book does. So when I start working this for real, then I can not need to pick that up. And it's not even that I'm resisting. And that's exactly what the book is about. You don't even have to have God figured out here. You just got to follow the directions in the book, do what it says, and you won't even want to drink.
I just wanted to clarify what you were saying there, add a little bit more. So what he was talking about there when Carl Jung was saying, no, you're fucked. What he was actually saying is like, you can't, religion isn't it. Like, it's not religion, and you have to find God in a way that's deeper than that. Religion isn't, like, they go hand in hand, but what in that context that he was talking about, the conversation was around, this is different than religion. You need to have a spiritual awakening, and sometimes you can find it in the church, but like, not always. And I think many people who has tried to find spirituality in a church or grew up with a really, really heavy indoctrination and have a resentment towards it. So I think it's important to just note that, like, I found that helpful when I was reading that. I thought, okay, this is not religion. This is good. I have a hope here, because I don't want it to be religion because it wasn't working for me. But with that being said, after a person gets connected to God, and after a person like has their own understanding of God and it's working for them and through them, you can add on to the church and you can come back to religion. And the book says, be quick to see where religious people are right. And it's amazing how much more my mind and heart has opened to the things that I grew up with in church that never made sense or that I never wanted to listen to. And now a lot of it just fits easily into this, and I don't have any sort of anger towards the church, and I can go there and actually connect to God now through the church because I have that first. So the two things go hand in hand, but they didn't for me at first. And I found like some relief in that story because I was like, fuck, okay, it's not religion. There's a hope here.
Okay, and so before we read on, and we're gonna probably go a little quicker, well, that's exactly what the book is about. Its main object will enable you. You don't need to figure it out. You don't have to look for it. The book will enable you to find the power, which is actually resides right in you. And that's why this program's so effective, because it takes away everything that's not God, allows you to start working with God. That will solve your problem. So the first problem we come here with is we need to distance ourselves from a substance. Well, God can do that. The real problem here is the selfish, self-centered nature of the alcoholic. And God will remove you from the problem of your own life. But that doesn't come in the first set of steps, really. You just get an inkling of what's going on here. And the treatment centers aren't even very good at fucking telling you guys what this is either, which is why treatment centers don't have that great of success rates. Like, honestly, they don't, right? They probably get like 3 out of 100 people stay sober for a year. So they don't have the greatest success rates, my opinion, because they don't even know the material we're delivering here really as well as we do. But they try hard and they're trying their best, and at least it's something, right? At least it's something. And I'm not here to discredit treatment centers, but I just want you to know, if you're going to treatment in and out and in and out, they don't really know what they're doing in a way. And there's a lot of good people there, and I'm not trying to bash them at all, okay? But anyway, okay, let's just read for a bit.
Okay, so we're at the middle of 45. Okay, obviously, but how and where will we define this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. And it means, of course, that we are going to talk about God. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as he discusses his alcoholic problems, and we explain our fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God, for we have reopened a subject which our man thought he had neatly evaded or entirely ignored. We know how he feels. We have shared his honest doubt and prejudice. Some of us have been violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him with which someone had tried to impress them during childhood. Perhaps we rejected this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. With that rejection, we imagined we had abandoned the God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. We looked upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claimed to be godly. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet in other moments, we found ourselves thinking, when enchanted by the starlit night, who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We have found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. As we soon admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. When therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies too to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relationship with God as we understood him. Afterwards, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth, but if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited that was.
Okay, just go on this. So just a couple things back to 45 on the bottom. So a lot of this book is written to try to get the agnostic or the atheist to open their mind and try to believe in something. I'm hoping that most of us aren't atheists or agnostics here. So I'm going to go on that presumption that we're all at least willing to believe in something. So Janine talked last week, I think it was about the set-aside prayer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know it off by heart? Okay,
Do you?
pretty much.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so the set-aside prayer is, it's God, allow me to forget everything I think I know about myself, about you, God, about your fellows, God, your kids, and about this program, for a new experience with each and every one of those things. So I set aside basically everything I think I know already, right? And so why I'm bringing this up is because most of us already have a conception of God. And I'm going to say some things here that might offend somebody, but that's okay. It's not intentional. The people that I see that have like really good programs and they're working this shit at a different level are people that came in here that didn't have a God at all, or that were able to just start with what the big book talked about, right? A lot of us come in here with like Jesus Christ, right? Or Christianity or Buddha or whatever. What I'm saying is just be open and let this book define what your God is going to be. Don't hold on to your old idea, no matter what it is, right? Maybe it's the sun, maybe it's the wind, maybe it's, you know, the lights in the wood. I don't know, but just be open to exploring that more. Okay. And, so to others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him that someone had tried to impress upon them during childhood. So that was my experience. I went to certain schools and they impressed a certain God upon me. And it wasn't like I had a choice. Not like they were driving this down my throat. I was fucking in grade 2 and my mom told me to go to this school. So I went to that school and they were impressing this upon me, unbeknownst to me, right? And when we go through this chapter, we kind of are thinking about ideas and we have our ideas of what life is. Well, there's one idea that I didn't have a choice in. I didn't have a choice in what I believed because it was put on me. But there's so many of your ideas that you have in your life of what you think life is that aren't even your ideas. We'll get more into that later, but God's one of them, or the type of God, or what version of God you had. Some had a punishing God, right? Perhaps we rejected this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. So a lot of people reject that God that they learned when they were young because it doesn't seem like it's the one that they want. Or they abandon the God ideal entirely. A lot of us, before we get here, we don't want anything to do with God because of what we already learned. Okay? So we were bothered by the thought of faith and dependence upon power beyond ourselves. We look at this world with warring individuals, warring theological systems. So what I used to do when I was growing up was I had my kids and my daughters. My kids are my daughters. And I would teach them to not like religion. I taught them to pick religion apart, and I made them think that religious people were really weak, because that's what I thought. I really did think that. So I started indoctrinating my kids with my beliefs, and there's an idea that they got that they didn't have a choice in. And then when I came here and I started doing this because I burnt my life to the ground, like 2 years in, I'm talking about God, and they're like, what the fuck are you on? So I have had to do like a full reversal on trying to like not jam anything down their throats. And I had already taught them to be very prejudiced against our God and religion. So them watching me change and try to believe in a God, it was really confusing to them. And that was part of my recovery where my kids really weren't happy with me and my ex-wife. And that was really hurtful to me because I started loving my God. But my kids started hating me because I talked about God now. So there was a period in my recovery that was really painful because my kids didn't want any part of that, right? I had to shut my mouth and not talk about it. So if you're new also, don't talk about that stuff with your family. Just fucking walk this path, okay? So I'm going to keep going down a little bit. So how could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? Who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet in other moments, we found ourselves thinking when enchanted by a starlit night. Who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. So for me, I didn't believe in God, but every now and then I'd sit at the lake and watch the stars and see the sunset or something. And I had that feeling, right? That feeling of like, fuck, that's so beautiful. And then it says, but it was fleeting and soon lost. Let's keep going. We found as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. So as soon as you have just even a willingness to believe in something, you will get results. I was talking with a guy yesterday, and he's been around the program, and he's not unique by any means. But he started praying and doing the things that we do when we're new here. Even kind of against what we believe, we'll do it anyway. And he got results. He got a lot of really good results. And then he got on with life. And then Banana Peel Trail revealed itself. And Banana Peel Trail took him down. And Banana Peel Trail is a hard trail to get off of. And I asked him, are you praying? And he said, I haven't prayed in a long time. And I'm like, okay, what, bro, if you're one of us, which I think you might be, the most important thing about prayer is, anyone know? To never stop. Hey, you don't stop. So you have to pray. Okay, it's super important. Even if you don't believe in it, even if you don't want to, as soon as you're done with your resentment against prayer, just start praying again. And even if you don't think that it's a prayer, just start talking to something.
We've been talking a lot about recovery being built in the small moments. And that's how I explain when people are like, well, what is the work? I have this girl that she's one of my best friends and she's not in the program. But I'm always saying like, well, you could do the steps, she's falling and her thing, and she just doesn't want to do the steps because she doesn't want to admit that maybe she has a drinking problem and so on and so forth, right? But I said to her, just like do the work. And she's really mad this day, and she's like, what is the work? And finally I was able to actually explain it, and it's like what we've been talking about. It's like in these micro moments, and the real like crux of my recovery in terms of like how I've been able to redevelop a a working relationship with God has been in those micro moments that I'm able to catch, like instead of reaching for Netflix or reaching for whatever the hell, like insidious things, food, exercise, you know, for a period there, it was Woody puzzle. But if I can sit in the discomfort and pray and like just really connect in that moment of like pain and not reach for something out of it, I feel like that's been something that has made my recovery in this area. I have never had recovery like this spiritually in this area because I've never done that. So I've been doing this, and I think that this is effective, and that this is where we turn our defects over. So that whole pause, pray, proceed thing, it's like these micro moments, you know. At first stuff was glaring, like things were really glaring when we're full of rage and we're angry, or when we're really scared. But as we stay sober, it's like it's more insidious, but the defects are still there. And when you catch them and lean into them with God in these small moments, they really do add up to do big things and big changes and a bigger connection from like my experience and what this book says.
Awesome. Okay. So much to our relief, we discovered we need not consider another conception of God. And that's what I'm saying. Don't even bother relying on anyone else's conception of God. People ask me what my God is today. I don't fucking know. I don't even have a clue. When I'm at ceremony, I say creator. Sometimes I say creator, I say God. Sometimes I say higher power. As long as it's not another human and it's not me, doesn't really matter what it is.
Side note, I didn't tell you this yet, but the University of Columbia, there's this that's in New York. They just started a PhD program for spirituality and psychology. It's crazy. And they're like actually able now to use science to prove spirituality and all kinds of things. It's a whole separate issue, but there's a lady who's like probably head of the department, but maybe considered a guru in the field. She was talking about this topic on like spirituality and other people's conceptions on a podcast I was listening to this week. She was saying like when you try to explain and tell somebody about your experience, like your conception of God, you actually ruin it in a way, because it's such a divine thing and a personal thing, and it's something that we just can't even explain with our own human minds, because it's something so much bigger than us. And so when we try to take this spiritual experience and put it into like this infinite experience into finite terms, it's like so much gets lost in translation. And that's true. Like I was like, that is so true, because I feel that in the program when someone's talking about God, I'll be like, oh, okay, you know. Or when I try to explain about God, I feel like I'm that person that people are like, oh, okay, because it's like such a personal thing that people can't explain really, you know. And it's like all I can say is this is what I do and this is what works. But I was comparing it to like if my grandma would have said to me, I don't know what it is, but it works for me, I would have had a way different response to it. And I know that for sure. And like, why wouldn't we have our own like reactions to this? And why would mine be the same as another person's, or why would mine work for somebody? Because like Bill was just mentioning, we're so, by this point in our lives, we are so riddled with like our experiences and the beliefs around those experiences, and just how things work. So if he's explaining his idea of God to me, and I don't have these experiences at all, so it's not going to be making sense. And it's not, so like the best approach to me is like, I don't know what this is, but I know that it works. And I feel like that would have been motivating for me. And that's how I try and explain it to other people, is just not explain it at all and just say, hey, like this is what works and it's personal to you, but here's the steps I took.
And so sometimes, like a lot of times I've worked with Christians, just devout Christians. And sometimes I find Christians are some of the hardest to work with when it comes to this stuff we're talking about. So what I try to do when I'm working with like Christians that have like really deeply entrenched beliefs, not only just from church, but from their whole family and the culture and everyone around them, there's a lot of deep rooted stuff in there that doesn't help them. So what I try to get them to do is I say, okay, when you pray, I don't even want you to say God. I want you to pray and you say love, right? And it's been a game changer. Or the other good thing I can do is, I did it for myself, was I prayed to my grandma. Like my grandma passed away in 2009. When I came here, I started praying to my higher power, was my grandma. And then that was a game changer. And you guys know, a lot of you know, my best friend is Jesse. Jesse and I, you know, we've sponsored very similar numbers of people in the program. You know, I'm just going to say, let's say 600 people together. And we bring all that data together. And in this area, we both took the approach where, as we're working with somebody and we are moving through the steps, we're trying to find a dead relative that they might have been attached to in their life that they really respected. That's been a game changer, right? Somebody who really wanted the best for this person, whether it was a friend or a father or mother or grandmother or great grandmother. And then they're praying to this spirit that they don't know. And it's been a game changer, right?
Something else that I'm just thinking of this conversation. I was driving back from Medicine Hat and I was talking to Bill. We would get into deep talks on those drives, and I don't know what we were talking about, but what I got from the conversation was change your prayers. And so I like wrote out my prayers. So like I changed step 3 and I changed just the way that I was talking. And I do that with sponsees too. And I'll give them the option. So when we're doing step 3 and it's like, okay, here it is. Do you like it like this? Or do you want to make it your own words? I'd say it's like 50-50, but we'll take the time to rewrite it. And that was like a really good suggestion. And I did that for myself. And I think it's really helpful to get rid of the prejudice and the thys and the thous, and if that's a thing that people trip on, and just to make it their own.
Okay, so as soon as we admitted even the possible existence of a creative intelligence, spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. So I'm just going to reread that because there's some shit hidden in here, okay? So as soon as you admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, God, spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed with a new sense of power and direction. So as soon as you begin to believe in it, you're already being powered up with this new sense of power and direction, okay? Provided, not just because you think you want to, provided it says we took other simple steps. That's the practical application. The theory of God would be, okay, I want this, and then I don't do anything to follow it up. That's what most people do. That's why most people don't stay sober. So we found that God does not make too hard of terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who what? Earnestly fucking seek God. Are you going to do this half measures? Is this just going to be a couple prayers in the morning or when you're fucking hurting? Get me out of this one. Maybe, I'm supposed to pray in the morning. Oh God, fucking, let me have a good day. Like, that's not what we're talking about. If you want to build a real relationship with God, you got to put the time in. And God's here. We're down here. Humble yourself. Get on your knees in the morning on awakening. And ask God to direct you. Don't ask him for all the shit that you need to think that you can get happy with. Because that's all the shit that's actually making you fucking drink, to be honest with you. Humble yourself. And just ask for his help, his power, his direction. And then fucking take that next step into your day. Do that many times through a day and feel that shit. Build that relationship. It's kind of like you have a partner, you have a friend. If you don't put the time into your friendship, you don't have that friend. If you don't pick up the phone and say, hey, friend, how you doing? and they're not doing that well. And you open your heart and you make some space for them. That's what bonds you guys together as friends or intimate partners or whatever. If you don't at least put some time into a relationship with God, you have a theoretical God. And a theoretical God is not practically applied application of what we're doing here, and you will not get the results. You might get some relief. And you will probably think that God's only the good shit in your life. But when you understand that God is everything, God's actually the bad. Because when your life is shaken and you fucking run and you finally pray to God, only to find out he's the one doing the shaking in your life, trying to fucking shake you awake to say, fucking do something. Change. You want help? I'm fucking helping you. Wake up. Here's a fucking hand reaching out. Are you gonna fucking bite it or are you gonna grab it? Here's a fucking boat I'm sending you as you're drowning. No, I'm good. God's gonna save me. Fucking then you're in heaven dead and you're like, dude, fuck, you're supposed to help me. He's like, I fucking sent you a boat. Jesus Christ. Right? And that goes for many things in this program. And I know Janine, I listened to our last recording, Janine shared in our last recording about how it was through sheer pain that we actually learned and grew the most. That is very true in the first 2 or 3 years of recovery. I think it gets less and less after 3 and 4 years, as long as you're running the program. Because you don't need to be beaten anymore. You can grab humility voluntarily and not have to be bludgeoned and beaten anymore. So that is an experience for the first 2 or 3, 4 years. Well, depending how hard good program you work to. Go ahead, sorry.
My grandma used to say, God gives and takes away. And it used to really scare me. And I didn't fully understand what it meant. And when she would do stuff like that, I would just push it down. And so as you were talking and you're saying like God is the bad, but it's like God's everything, so it's like God is not just the things we perceive as good. It's all the things that go on in life. And that Bible verse to me now, it's like God does give and take away, like there is a season for everything. Like there's joy and there's pain and that doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It means like it's like kind of necessary for us to grow and for us to witness to others and to carry a message. And there's a lot of beauty that comes from going through the hard times. And so I actually say this to myself now, where it's like God gives and takes away. So like in the good moments, it gives me gratitude because I know that this moment's going to pass. Like the good passes as well. So be grateful. And when I'm in pain, it's like God will take this away too. God gives us all these experiences and nothing is temporary or nothing is permanent. It's all just temporary and it's here. So be grateful. And if you're in a period of like where there's storms and there's fear and there's difficult emotions, like to me, it's like this will pass and this will pass much better. I will come out of this in a much better way if I'm doing this stuff versus being in self, acting in fear, acting in whatever I need to do to feel emotional security from something that isn't God, or financial security. And I'm acting like all these decisions that I used to make in fear that would compound the storm, and I wouldn't come out of it better. Like I would come out of it okay. And like, again, another verse that comes to mind, my grandma would say, all things work together for good for those who love God. And like, I see that in my recovery where it's like, it doesn't matter how far down the line, like the book says, it doesn't matter how far down we have fallen. God can restore us, and like, God can take all of the shit and all of our experiences and turn it around. And it doesn't matter how many more times you make a mistake, God can change it. Like all things can work together for good as long as you're seeking God. And you were talking about the getting on your knees and praying, and this came up in that podcast where she was talking about when you pray and you're praying to something that's not you, and like Bill said, where you're not asking for things that you want for yourself because you don't know, right? Like, because you don't know what's best for you. And you don't know what you're even asking for. So it's like, thy will be done needs to be the prayer, and help me suit up for whatever it is and have the strength to do that. And so when you're setting your eyes towards that ideal, you actually change your vibrational level, your frequency, and you get to a place where you're like kind of putting aside yourself and you're seeking something higher than yourself, and you vibrationally shift up, which allows you to see coincidences and allows you to see the things you would have missed if you were in self, and to see evidence of the higher power working for you, because you're seeing the coincidences, if you want to call them that, or you're seeing things show up and like, oh, okay, I intuitively know how to follow this now because I'm not like full of myself. And like in this literature, it's like we're clearing the channel through prayer, and we're using step 10 to clear the channel and 11 to clear the channel, so that we can step 12 in our day-to-day, which doesn't always look like carrying a message. It looks like following God's breadcrumbs. And if our channel is clear, we are able to see them because we're not full of self in a distracting way where we're missing all of these clues and the boat that God sent for us.
10-4. Okay. We'll just gonna read another little bit here. We'll stop in like 5 or 7 minutes. When therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expressions which you will find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. So that's really important. It's saying, don't let any of this literature, the spiritual terms, prayer, meditation, faith, any of the words deter you from honestly asking yourself, what does it mean to you? What is God to you? That's why that set-aside prayer is so important, to get out of your own way and just go, what is God? And when you think of love, you know, it's funny because it's like, it's somebody that doesn't believe in God. Well, I can't believe in something I don't see. I'm like, oh, really, eh? Do you believe you love your kids? Fuck yeah. Let's see. Show me. Prove it. They're like, well, how do you prove that? Exactly, bro. How do you prove you love somebody? You can't prove that because it's a fucking feeling. It's a connection. It's an energy that you can't touch or feel. Or you can feel it, but you can't touch it, right? So, and the thing about worship, okay, there's another word, worship. I used to think worship meant like just Christian stuff. Well, worship is what you think about most. What do you think about the most in your life? Is it you? How things can be better for you? Is it your relationship? Is it a guy? Is it money? Is it a job? When you do a pie chart and you go, what do I think about the most in my life? Here's 100% of a pie chart, and now break it up and let's see what you think about. And you're gonna see that, okay, I think about others like a little sliver, but when I think of others, I'm always thinking about what can I get from them? So it's like you're still thinking about you, right? And for the alcoholic addict, we got to be rid of the selfish self-centeredness or it kills us. So even if I can rationalize and justify that I'm doing shit for you, when I really peel back the layers, it's not really for you. I want a fucking pat on the back, or I want repayment of something. So, and another thing about ideas and words. So I think what I'm really good at is I'm good at taking a word that you already know, that I've known, and why I'm good at this is because I've done it in my own life. I'll take a word that I thought meant something, and then I'll recondition the word to mean something else. Because just because what you tell me something means, I don't fucking believe it anymore. I don't have to believe it anymore. So faith to me doesn't mean what it meant. There's so many words that they do not mean what I thought they meant most of my life, right? And this book uses many words that I've looked up and they actually mean something different than most of us think, which
completely changes the meaning.
Which changes everything. So there's so many things in your life that you view a certain way, and that's the way because you have the idea and the words and the experiences, like she said. Now we got to look at those experiences, those words and those ideas and go, what about them are yours? Do you think a job and the guy and the money and all this shit is what's going to make you happy? Yeah, we usually do. But it doesn't keep us sober. And when we look at the truth, it actually doesn't make us happy either. What really makes us happy is when we're fucking giving love. When we're loving something or somebody, a dog or a human, or we're in nature, right?
This week, if you guys think of it, when you're reading something or when you hear a word, you can remember to actually Google the word. You will be so surprised at how often the word is not, like, my son is, my 15-year-old, he's a definition guy. So if I say a word and he doesn't quite know, he'll be like, what does that mean? And I'll be like, well, it means like, and I'll describe it, but then I end up Googling it and I'm like, okay, like that's what I was trying to say, but it says it's so much better and it's like succinct and bang on. And I'm like, that is what it means. It's crazy. So like, if you Google the words, you'll be so surprised at what it actually says and how accurate and how it changes a whole sentence just with the accuracy. We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically ensure him that he is on his way.
Emphatically.
Emphatically. We emphatically. Do you want to Google that? What does it mean?
It means like, you're on your way, bud.
Okay, now Google it. Now we're gonna have an experiment. So Bill's definition was, it means, you're on your way, bud.
Without doubt, clearly.
Without doubt, clearly.
You're on your way, bud.
Okay, we assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. That was great news to us, for we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level. Besides a seemingly inability to accept on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinance, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with the alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was the great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were.
Okay, perfect. So just back up a little bit on 47 to right before where she started reading. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to affect our first conscious relation with God as we understood him. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited that was. So we have to start somewhere, right? The book's talking about a guy who doesn't really believe, and to open his mind and at least believe somewhere, start somewhere. That was growth. And then later, we can find ourselves accepting many things which seemed entirely out of reach. Okay, and we'll get back to that as we read down. This is where you would give somebody step 2 as a sponsor. This is it right here. So we need to ask ourselves about one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? Question mark. As soon as the man can say that he does or he is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. So when I'm working with the guy and I get him to hear and it says there's a question mark there, I said, are you willing to believe or do you believe? And they're usually like, yep. then you give them step 2. It's like, okay, you got step 2. We move on. And that's where you would give it to him. You could also give it to him on the previous page where it talked about, we found as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and even express a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. You could give it to him there, but I always give it to him there. Okay.
I think too, like, I'm thinking about my beginning, and my beginning was, it was some seeking around the defects, right? Like I was looking for, what do I do with the defects? Because I didn't understand the 6 and 7. But when I met Bill, he had done what I was really trying to do. Like I was trying to change my life completely, like employment wise and where I was located. Like there was a lot of things that I needed to move and shake. And I didn't have even close to a higher power that I could rely on at that point. Like I could have, but I couldn't get there. So what I was using was his higher power. Cause I'm like, okay, so it worked for him. And I'm like, okay, tell me about the time that you left your job again. Okay, tell me about what this looked like. And so he would tell me like stories about his change process, and he believed it, and I could see it was working for him. And so that was where I started, was using someone else's faith, that they had a faith in something that was working for them. So if that's where a person needs to start, it can work. It just has to be in something that isn't them.
10-4. Okay. As soon as a man can say he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way.
Hey, bud.
You're on your way, bud. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon the simple cornerstone, if you are taking notes or doing anything, I highly recommend you circle the word cornerstone. Okay. It's a word that people don't really get or think there's any significance in this program on that word, but this word actually has huge significance, okay? So it has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, what's the cornerstone?
Do I believe in my will?
Right. Do I believe, or am I even willing to believe? Upon that cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure could be built. Doesn't say that it's fucking built just because you believe in God. So what is a cornerstone? A cornerstone is a piece that you put into the foundation when you're building a building. So if you have 4 corners, you'll have 4 cornerstones. And what a cornerstone does is it gets set into the foundation and it squares up your corners so that as you build your building, it's actually square. Okay. So upon this simple cornerstone, this foundation of being willing to believe in God or believing in God, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure within yourself could be built. But it doesn't say it's built just because you believe in God. Okay. So the cornerstone's just the concept of God. That's all that the cornerstone is. Now, how do we actually build this structure and turn it over to God? No more theory. Well, that's where step 3 comes in. Because step 3 is the action of turning it over to God. And step 3 doesn't actually have the action in it. It's just a willingness to do it. Where does the willingness really come in to do step 3? Step 10. And where is the theory of what step 10 is really trying to show you? Step 6. And where do we start seeing the failure that my life is and why I fucking drink? Step 4, step 5. When we make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, you don't know what your fucking will is. You can guess what, again, your ego is powerful. You don't want to be left out. So you can think you know what your fucking will is, but you don't know what it is until you begin to do a step 4 and see the fucking truth. And even when you first do a 4 and 5, you're just seeing a fucking bare minimum viewpoint of what your will is. That's just like a fraction of it. But most people don't even get through a 4 and 5 and they think they know what their will is. They haven't turned fuck all over. Anyway, go ahead. Not just because you believe in that, you finish the literature. Okay? The literature is the work also. So you keep going through the literature. There's people that'll be like, do you believe your life's unmanageable and you're an alcoholic? Yeah. Do you believe in a God? Yeah. Do you sit here and turn your will and your life over? Yeah. Okay, you got step 1, 2, and 3. Bullshit.
Yeah, and with that, you hear people going, I had 1, 2, 3 out, 1, 2, 3 out, 1, 2, 3 out. Well, step 3 in the book, it ends with like, you're launching on a course of action. So you're not actually done step 3 until you've started 4. So like, that's the end of 3 is when you've started 4. So just to throw that out there.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Aaron.
So just for anyone else, because what we're also here doing is we're here teaching you guys to carry the actual fucking message of what the book is saying into the rooms. Because there's such a misconception and a skewed version of what is in the rooms that people aren't staying sober and they're not hearing the fucking message out of the book. They're just hearing what somebody thinks. And if new people come in and they just hear what people think, then that's what they think the program is.
I spent a long time in AA, like a long time going in and out, in and out, in and out. And I didn't like read the book, and I was listening to other people and I was thinking I was getting it and I was doing the steps off the wall. I did real step 5s with people, but I was in and out, and I was in and I was not really doing AA. And so when I came to Calgary, I was just like floored when I heard about the peculiar mental twist. And I was like, holy crap. Like, if I'm saying I'm powerless over alcohol, I'm going to get drunk again then if I'm powerless over alcohol and I have a peculiar mental twist. And I was like, I was convinced, like when I got into the book and I was reading that and I saw myself in the stories, especially that milk one for some reason. But when I could see that, I really then became convinced with that I was like, okay, then I'm going to just keep drinking, like as much as I don't want to right now. If I don't figure out how to get behind the blank mental spot. So for me, like when I was breaking down, you know, Dr. Bob needed the rest of the information. That was me too. Like I knew that there was a phenomenon of craving. I picked that up in the meetings, but nobody ever talked about the blank mental spot that came before the first drink. That was
Mental blank spot.
What did I just say?
Blank spot.
Same shit. Well, come on. The peculiar mental twist that precedes the first drink, though. Yeah. So when I learned about that, that was the piece for me where I was like, okay, I need to figure this out, because it doesn't matter that I really did know about the allergy. And you know what? I thought, well, I'm just going to have to drink 5% coolers so that I don't black out and embarrass myself. Like I'm just destined to drink again. And I really thought that, like, I was just like, okay, I'm an alcoholic. I know I drink differently, but I don't feel like I found any solution. And I've tried a lot of things. So like getting into the book and actually reading it is so important, and carrying the proper message, like which is what's in the book and not just opinions. And like, so really getting into the book. And I found like every time that I work with somebody and I pull out the big book, like sometimes I'll just be on the phone and I'll open the book up and point to something and then talk about it. And just like as something to talk about if we don't have anything really to say that's alcohol related. And it's amazing the things that come up and the ways that it speaks through me or speaks to me in different ways that I can read the same paragraph 10 times and it says something different and relates to something different in my life. And I see it in a whole different way depending on where I'm at. So I feel like God is like, just going to share this. I had a sponsee call the other day and she was struggling with some things, and like, she's like, but I'm praying and I'm doing the step 10s and I'm doing everything I need to. And I was like, yeah, but like, are you sponsoring? How are you carrying the message? Like, it's all fun and good when you're doing step 10 and 11 solidly, but you're sitting there and you're like with yourself and God. And I think you need the other person to come in there so God can really get some movement. And like, we're not supposed to recover by ourselves. We're supposed to be doing this with other people. And that's where God really can get in there and move and shake and speak through us. And I can hear things and people can hear things through me, but just sitting by myself is not helpful. Doesn't matter how much I'm praying and how much I'm doing step 10s. The rest of it is like in working with others. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be with sponsorship. It's just carrying the message in all of our affairs. And when we're doing that and interacting with other people, It's amazing. It's like, so the message that we carry is the literature and what's in the book. And that's the stuff that gets us recovered.
Okay, and before I keep reading, I just want to touch base on one thing Janine shared on. Earlier, I talked about the obsession. Actually, when you look at the big book, the word obsession is actually not anywhere in step 1. But when you go to meetings, you hear people say all the time, oh, the obsession of the mind, the obsession of the mind. That is like a perfect example of somebody's opinion or theory, and then it's being shared in the rooms, and then everyone believes it. Then everyone's sharing on it. Everyone else is saying the obsession of the mind. It doesn't fucking even say that in step 1 in our literature at all. It says the mental blank spot. It says, perhaps he doesn't think at all. It says, you know, he had the thought of drink and matched it with an insane trivial excuse. That's why we need God, because we don't have the power to fucking say no to this when the mental blank spot's on. How did I even get here with the drink in my hand? Right? Perhaps he doesn't think at all. How do you combat that? How do you fucking remember with sufficient force the memory, the pain, and the suffering of a day, week, a month ago when you don't even have defense against the first drink? And at a certain point, you don't have even an effective mental defense against the first drink, it says. Most people use the effective mental defense against the first drink. What's that? I remember what happened. I remember I don't want to drink. I remember I can't drink. I remember my liver is fucking failing. I remember I don't have a home. I need to fucking stay sober because my last thread of people helping me. That's not enough, right? At a certain point, the alcoholic has no effective mental defense against first drink. And they're drunk.
I'm going to share a story. I just want to say before I say this, that I got sober at a treatment center, and I loved the treatment center that I went to, and I had really good counselors. And so I just want to say that as a preamble. So I was about, I don't know, I just got to Calgary, maybe 10 months sober. And I had just come to Calgary, and I was going through it. Like there was all kinds of dust flying from this move, and court stuff, like custody stuff. There was just all kinds of things going on. And it hit me like right when I got to Calgary. So I couldn't even change my mind. Like I was in it. And so I went to the treatment center because I was spinning out like really, really bad. And I was really scared. And I just felt like overwhelming uncertainty, and like, I don't even know. I was terrified, and I felt like I was blowing in the wind, and I just needed to get grounded. And so I went to the treatment center that I had graduated from. And so the staff was so good. They scooch alumni in, and they'll meet with them and whatever. So I was saying, like, with this counselor lady, I was saying, this is all going on, and I'm, you know, and I'm talking about my fear, and I'm talking about just my situation. And as I'm talking, I can hear myself saying like all these things that's fear-based. And I knew enough about, like, and he and I were good friends at this point, actually. And like, so I knew what was going on. I just couldn't stop myself. I was on a spree. And so I finished my blah, 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 blah. And then she goes to me, this is the obsession of the mind. You need to go back to step 1. And I was like, okay. I was like, I actually feel like this is a kind of a step 10, or we're in defects here. And she's like, this is the alcoholic mind, and it's the obsession of the mind, and you need to do step 1 around this. And so I was like, this is so interesting. And it really pulled me out of what was going on, because I was like, this is like not good advice. This is really not what I should be doing. And so I ended up getting into a little bit of a tit for tat, and I was like, tell me how you think this is the obsession of the mind. And she gives me a little rendition. I was like, so this is like how you actually do step 6. So then I started doing a little like in service, and she wasn't convinced. And so I just said, agree to disagree. I remember this so much, like, agree to disagree. And then I was leaving, and she had a little quote on the door, and I was like, see, step 6. And she's like, that's actually about step 1. And so it was like this perception, and she doesn't actually do the steps, and she's just like, she's a counselor and she's super effective. So then she followed me outside and then we had a really good talk, and she said a couple of nuggets that weren't 12-step related, but that really were helpful. So but 12-step advice, I was like, this is not what I should be doing. And so I tell you this story because if you're just getting people's opinions and you're not getting into the book yourself, and if you're not spending time with people who are 12-step God-centered working out of the book, you can get all kinds of advice, and it can be very, very confusing because people have opinion. Like I do remember this from old school AA. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. This old timer used to say that all the time. And that's what it is like people have all kinds of opinions. Every single person in here can have a different opinion about a thing at any point. So this thing is the same. And it says we come into the rooms because we have a common problem, but the solution is what binds us. And it's a common solution, which is out of here, not just out of our opinions, because we will never get a common solution out of our opinions because we're humans with our beliefs and our experiences. And so the way that we have a common solution is through this book.
10-4. Okay, let's keep reading. Bottom paragraph 47. So that was great news to us, for we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with the spiritual approaches, how frequently did we say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes, but I cannot accept surely the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting we could learn could commence at a simpler level. So I remember when I came into the program and I would see guys that were really, they had this God thing down and they seemed like really on point and like their lives were good and they just exuded this energy. And I was pretty prejudiced, right? I couldn't accept the many articles of faith that these guys would fucking talk about, like forgiveness about everybody and these people that they hated that now they forgive. And I'm just like, holy shit, right? And how much they prayed or meditated, or there's numerous things that I didn't jive with. But there was a part of me that was like, fuck, I wish I had what that guy has. I'm sure it would work if I fucking believed like this guy believes, right? And now flip that around. I'm the guy that people think that about, right? Fuck, I wish I had what you have, bro.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But, right, like, and I don't even know how I got here, but I had to commence at a simpler level. I had to start somewhere. I had to start at the start. I had to at least try. I didn't want to pray. I sure didn't want to fucking meditate. I sure didn't want to help anybody. I didn't want to chair meetings. I didn't want to sponsor. But as I kept doing this program and I just started doing the things, then everything just kind of happened one by one by one. And eventually, I just realized that this was the way I was going to live my life. I was about 1.5 years sober and I was reading stuff out of step 7. And I fucking, at that minute, I just knew. I'm like, this is how I'm living my life. I'm going to believe every word in these 2 books. One was the big book and one was 12 and 12. This is the set of directions. 12 and 12 is just like an enhancement. And then I started living my whole life based around the books and the steps. And now I believe in like my God more than I believe in anything. And I think that's like what is attractive, right? She believed in my God before she even believed in hers. Like I was so convicted when she would call me, I'd be like, no, you don't fucking do that. You fucking pray and you're in fear and whatever it was, right? And she just latched on to like, okay, he's done it. I'm going to fucking believe him. And eventually now I don't get those calls, right? Every now and then she might spin a little bit, but I'll spin a little bit. And now like she's a pillar, right? I sure the fuck wasn't calling her to support me as a pillar when she first came in. I'd be fucking drunk. Serious. That's why when she talked about God-centered 12-step pillars. That's what we rely on. You don't go and call the guy on step 3 or step 4 or step 2 who's fucking newcomers, fucking still gambling or fucking smoking dope, selling dope out of the treatment center. You don't go to him for advice. you'll get fucking drunk and high. You have to seek out people that are doing this at a higher level, and then you do what they do. And the people that are doing this at a higher level are going to tell you how fucked you are. And you got to be able to listen to that. If you're not listening to somebody who's fucking living this and they're telling you how fucking wrong you are or what you need to do, and you're obstinate, and I'm just going to flip the next page. We often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. You will find yourself handicapped in your own personal growth by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Those three things are there in the context of God, okay? You will handicap yourself to believe in God by your stubbornness, your pride, sensitiveness, or your unreasoning prejudice. What you think something is before even actually knowing the facts about it. That's what those three things mean. But you will stunt your own growth in your open-minded. Remember when we started the chapter? The gateway to true knowledge is open-mindedness. Being stubborn, being stuck in sensitiveness, pride, or stubbornness, or unreasoning prejudice, there's no open-mindedness in any of those things. Those things will handicap you in the growth of your own self-discovery and your own relationship with God. And all of those things are based in fucking ideas that you already have that you think are best for you. And most of the ideas that you think are best for you aren't even your fucking ideas. And if you're new and you can't get sober in this room and you always have the plan of how it's going to go, be prepared to stay fucking drunk. Because when the alcoholic addict has the plan, they're fucking stay drunk. Until you fucking let go and you let somebody else fucking help you and guide you, you will fucking stay drunk. That's a fucking fact. And why I'm also up here doing this, and I'm going to use my friend Patrick over there. Patrick came up to me the other day. Can I use our little story the other day? He's like, we're at a meeting and then I shared, and it's a meeting where you ask a question and then people cross share and give you the answer. So I was one of the guys that got to give him the answer. And you guys know how I am. So I gave him the fucking answer, how I saw it, right? And then after the meeting, we started chatting. He's like, fuck, dude, I remember you from like 2 years ago. I fucking hated you. I fucking hated you, man, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fuck, join the club. That's fucking, most new guys don't like me. Audrey can attest. She fucking didn't like me. Anyone else not like me at first? Yeah. See? But the thing about that, you still don't. The thing about it is, as I fucking say the truth in these meetings and I predict like what your life's gonna be like in these meetings as an alcoholic, and you say, no, fucking that's not me, then you go back out there and then you live that experience. I'm that little voice in your fucking head that you fucking hate. But then 2 years later, you can't deny it because everything I'm saying comes out of the book pretty much and my experiences as a sponsor. And like, we're not unique. Your fucking path isn't fucking unique. And that's why even with Janine, and as she came, we met when she was sober, but she was still in a lot of fucking untreated alcoholism. And she had to like really fucking stay within the lines, and she listened to her pillars.
I'm just thinking, I was actually just thinking about that, of that time period. And I kind of was like I've talked about how I was in a corner of, I didn't have a lot of room. It was either I was moving or I wasn't, or I was like giving up my lease and saying this was it, or I wasn't, you know, like there wasn't a lot of wiggle room once the decision was made. And I think that was helpful. But I also had an attitude of why would I take only half the advice? Because, you know, the half measures thing is, I just thought if I'm going to be doing what this is, then it's like, and I see this with people that I work with where it's like 95% of the things they'll agree with and they'll do, but then there'll be this percentage of things that they're not willing until there's the pain that comes from it. And I think just my situation, I didn't have the option to just wiggle around a whole bunch, and that was helpful. But I was thinking about when you were talking to me about the God is a theory and whatever, and I was all fucked up and like I was spinning out all the time, like in this basement suite in another city, and just being by myself, spinning out, but like trying to stay focused on what I was doing, and I really clung to my ideals. And so this particular day, I don't know what I was spinning out about. Fear of making a decision was usually it, but I was driving around and I was like, my head used to be so loud, just racing thoughts all the time. And I was driving around and I remember it was raining and I was like, hey, like I'm gonna drink. Like I feel like do you remember this? I was like, I'm gonna drink. Like I am so close to drinking. And I was down by the courthouse in this town and I just pulled over and I was just like sitting in my shit. And then you pulled up that part of the 12 by 12 that was talking about melancholy, chasing it into, I don't know, you're like, that's what we do. We just sit in our shit. And then you quoted that. And then I was like, holy shit. Like, okay, what do I got to do? And you said, you told me, go to the park with your kid. So I was like, I did not want to go to the park with my kid. Like it wasn't even a nice day out and he's hard to pack up, but I did because like Bill told me to go and that would be helpful. And he's like, this is like going and helping someone else. In this capacity, you're getting out of yourself and you're going and spending time with your kid. So I did that. And then while I was at the park, I was like, okay, I see how people drink, like how you can think you're spiritually fit. And then, you know, an hour in your head and then you're wanting to drink. But it's like, that was a really quick example for me of how quickly things can corrode if I don't stay in good spiritual condition and do the things. And what I learned from that was really powerful around the blank mental spot, because I don't think that I'm in a state of like, okay, right now I'm going to have a blank mental spot, because right now everything is okay. And I feel like I'm okay in this moment. But if I get into some self and I stay in self for some time and I start to get the restless, irritable, discontent, and I just stay there and I just like the frog in boiling water, that's when my self-will runs out. And then at any point I can be caught off guard where it's like, then I could be drunk, because my power against the first drink has to be something bigger than me. And so I really saw that was like the lesson of that day that was so profound for me, with just like, because I never understood like when is this blank mental spot going to hit me? Like I could just be driving, I could be at a red light and then I'm going to be at a liquor store. And it's like, for me, I could see it. It's like, it doesn't go like that. It's like, I sit in my shit long enough and I sit in my shit long enough and I don't do the things I'm supposed to be doing. And then will run out and then I will be like caught off guard. And so that was like the importance of me just doing what Bill said in that moment, to not have the restlessness. And it only helped for maybe 2 hours before I was back in fear again. But that's how it was for me. It was just like, just anything I could do that was the right thing to do. And I never knew what the right thing was until I did a step 10 around it, which I didn't even know was a step 10. But like, there was lots of asking for help and doing things I didn't want to do. And like, they seemed so stupid and pointless, but eventually it was like, and you called them sober patterns, and you'd be like, okay, you got through it again. Like, this is a sober pattern. You have to stay sober. That's all you got to do is stay sober. And he just kept saying this. And I was like, okay. And it was just such a fuck time, because I had a girl that I was sponsoring. She's online. And she was like, Jay, is it a theory? Is it? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'll call Bill. I'll call you back. So we were both like, oh my God, are we in a theory or is it God? Like, and it was a really weird time. But I look back on it really fondly, because I see how I was really growing and how like it was actually a really important time for me and special when I look back, but it did not feel like that at all at the time.
And that thing about theory of God or practically applied, is it really God? You know when it's no longer a theory. So typically, if you think, I wonder if God's a theory, I'm just going to say probably it is, because you'll know when it's no longer a theory, and it only comes through the practical application of following the directions in this book, not what you think the directions are. In between all the fluffy shit in this book, there's some clear-cut directions that we do. Is it easy? No. You got to be disciplined? Yes. You got to throw away everything you already think you know about life? Yeah. You got to allow these new conceptions and motives try to dominate you? Yeah. Does it seem like the right thing to do? No. Common sense will thus become uncommon sense.
And do you remember what I would say what you would say to me when I'd say, what if I'm making a mistake? What if this is the wrong choice? Do you remember?
Yeah, I probably said it doesn't matter if it's a mistake. You at least made a decision and you moved in a direction. Like most of us will fucking get caught up in the decision. You were fucking famous for that.
Yeah.
Her thing was, I need to make a decision, and she wouldn't make any decision, but she'd fucking spin her mind senseless for who knows how long, till right before she picked up a drink. And like, I really helped her like move out of fucking medicine hat, quit her fucking job, or at least put it on pause, not do these interviews, not go on these dumb dates, and whatever the fuck it was. Well, yeah, you were wondering about those guys, should I go? And you're like, fuck no, right? But whatever it was, and I can't say that like, don't do it. She's got to make the choice herself, right? But I would highly recommend, and I'd share my experiences, and then she would fucking do whatever it was. And then she'd call me and go, fuck, I feel so light. I feel like fucking like there's relief there. And it wasn't as hard as I thought, because we created more in our head. And even if there was pain, doesn't matter. That's how we fucking navigate our way through it, right? With God. It has to be.
Yeah, and like the with God thing, the timing, I've talked about this with this group before, but like the timing was just insane. And that was like one of the things where I'm like, okay, this guy's tapped into something bigger, because like I was literally about to interview for something and he phoned and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just about to interview. He's like, why? And I was like, well, I don't know, because I am. He's like, okay, for a job you wouldn't take, that you don't want, that you would decline. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it was like, he stopped me. So I did the right thing. And he didn't even tell me. I just started bawling. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, okay, I'm going to let you go. And I want you to pray and then just do whatever you got to do. And so it was so embarrassing, because I had to phone and like say, you know, sorry about this last minute withdraw, but this is what I should have done in the first place, kind of thing. And like, it was definitely a higher power intervening, because that happened so many times that the phone would ring or he would say something or send something, and I'd be just about to make some default decision, you know, and he talked to me about like going back to what I knew that was familiar, for the financial security, for the emotional security, for the whatever it was. And because society tells you that and it was all these old beliefs, and me grabbing for like, because I was so anxious trying to figure it all out, that I was grabbing for what I knew. And so I just think like people are put in your place, and God, again, like what I was saying, God speaks through people. And that's mostly how my belief has come, is that just God does for Bill what he can't do for himself.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to use her experiences a little bit more here. She wouldn't move. She was thinking of moving back. She was worried about her kid, her little kid. She got a little kid, Maze. She's worried about her ex and how this is going to look. She's worried about her ex's mom, and she's worried about fucking everything, right? And like, we're going to worship two things. You're going to worship two unseen things. One is going to be fear, and fear will fucking destroy your life, or you worship fucking love. And to unworship fear, you got to go through the pain of going through what those old ideas are. And why I keep talking about the ideas, because as we get more into this chapter, like this first half, I don't even care for this first half. Like next week, when we get into the second half of this chapter, it's the God dope. It's the fucking good shit. Because it's the ideas that you hold on to that fucks up your fucking life. And surrendering these ideas is really the key to this stuff. But being able to see it and how it doesn't serve you and all these other things, right? And so she's like a good example of somebody who just said, fuck, okay, jumped off a cliff with fucking no parachute, and the parachute opened right before she splattered. And she did that numerous times, to the point where it was like, okay, she had a mustard seed of belief, like it said in here. And then that belief turned into some faith. And that faith is now getting into the trust zone. where you trust and you can jump off knowing, right? And because I've done so much of that in my life, and I just trust God. I don't even know why I trust him so much, but I just don't care. Because I know nothing's going to fuck up my life. Like, where's Alicia? Is she back there?
That's so weird.
We were having this conversation the other day, and you know, we all go through turmoil in our lives, but she's like, I know I'm going to be okay. God has my back. It doesn't fucking matter. Whatever the pain is we go through right now, it doesn't fucking matter. And you only make it worse by fucking dwelling in it. And I love that she said that, because I remember fucking when I was going through shit, I said that because I knew that it was true. And today there is no issue with that, right? So I'm just going to finish this paragraph, Paul. So just, okay. So many of us been so touchy that even casual reference on spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with alcoholic destruction, listen up. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. Underline. In this respect, alcohol was the great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. So alcohol will fucking beat you into a state of reasonableness where you fucking quit running the show and you fucking allow this program to take over. You allow other people's experiences to fucking guide your life. And in that respect, alcohol is the great persuader. Okay? And sometimes it was a tedious process. Means it's fucking long and painful. But then it says, we hope no one else will be prejudiced for long as some of us were. And that what that's saying is you don't have to be beaten anymore. You can surrender and just say, fucking show me the way. And you don't have to get beaten anymore. You can just surrender to this way of life and do it. And at first it's like, fuck, do I really want to do it? Well, when you get down the road, you'll fucking love it more than anything. Like that self-discovery and fucking going through the pain. Like today I'll do a set of steps and I'm like, fuck, bring it on. Show me where I'm a fuckhead. Show me where I'm fucking doing dumb in my life. Because I know I can grow through that shit. And that's the beauty of this program, right?